So this here's a video on how to paint the Foetid Bloat Drone for the Death Guard. And as you can see, we just finished it. It looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. If you like this or you like the way it appears, please feel free to stay tuned and we'll show you how we painted this up. If you like videos like this and you want to be alerted to when we put them up, please feel free to like or subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below either way. And hopefully we'll see you when we start painting our model. So stay tuned. So this here's a video on how to paint our Foetid Bloat Drone. So as you can see, we've primed him. He's not fully assembled. We've kept the both plaguespitters off. This makes him a little easier to paint. And what we did first is we primed him with some Mechanicus standard gray. When we were doing the plague burst crawlers, we decided that it was a little easier to do a dark undercoat than it was to do a light one. So in this case, we primed him with the standard gray. So for our Foetid Bloat Drone, the first color we're going to do is going to be on the fleshy bits on the back here. And we're going to start it with some Rakarth flesh. Now Rakarth flesh is a base paint, so we should get some decent coverage, but it is very watered down as well. So it may take 2 coats to do, but we're just going to do all of the fleshy bits. Don't worry if you make a mess, because this is the first paint in the first area, and we will clean all of the other stuff up later. This is our bloat drone now that we finished with the Rakarth flesh. And as you can see, we did the front, all the fleshy bits here around the eye or the lens, and then around the front mouthpiece, all of the tentacles. We did the back set, all of the fleshy bits here right up to the tentacle on the top. So we took care of all of those, and we did 2 watered down layer coats, so we got some good coverage there. So now that we're done with our bloat drone, what we're going to do is add a shade. And the first thing we're going to do is take a little bit of Reikland Fleshshade, and we're going to cover in everything we did with the Rakarth flesh to bring out a little bit more detail here. So we'll do that now. And we're going to just use it straight. And just put a good layer over everything we did. Making sure we get all the cracks and crevices here, because this is how we're going to bring out some of the detail. And some of these deeper recesses we're not going to touch again with any other color. We're going to add one more shade. We're going to take a little bit of Carroberg Crimson, and we're going to do the tentacles here, here, as well as the one dangling at the top half here. So just like so. Just making them a little bit more redder. Just like so there. What we're going to do now is add an over layer or a highlight layer. And we're going to go with some Kislev flesh. Just to add a little bit more color to that and bring out some of the skin there. I'm just going to dry brush that right over like so. Keeping the redness into the groove so it still looks sickly, but has a bit more color to it. So there's our bloat drone now that we've done with the Kislev flesh. And what we're going to do next is one more highlight layer of Pallid witch flesh. And we're going to do another dry brush of that right over the top. This is a very, very light color, so it's very overpowering. So we only want a tiny, tiny bit of it. And you'll just see here that it just pales up that skin even a little bit more there. So we just want a little bit of it. So we definitely have some nice sickly skin there. So we'll leave that as it is and we'll move on to the next part of the model. So the next part of our bloat drone, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the armor We're going to use some Death Guard green for that. We could start with the metallics, but we want to get this part before we get that part there, just so we don't go over it. So we're going to start with a Death Guard green, and with a watered down amount of paint, we're just going to start doing all of the armor. Being careful not to get on our skin that we just finished. And as you can see, it's a very watered down layer, so we may need a couple of coats. So with our Bloat Drones green armor finished, we're going to add a highlight layer to that. And we're going to take a little bit of Nurgling green, and with our dry brush, which looks like that, we're just going to lightly dry brush over the front of that, being careful not to go on our skin. But adding that dry brush of that lighter green. Just like so. And on the plaguespitters that we've done earlier as well. So with our bloat drone, now that the highlight on the armor is finished, before we do a shade, what we're going to do is start working on some of the metallics. So what we're going to do with that is take some Leadbelcher, and we're just going to, with a nice watered down layer, start doing everything that we're going to eventually put metal. So that's the 3 propellers, as well as the plaguespiter on the front, the arms, the hydraulics here, and then all the straps and vents that are in the fleshy bits, and then probably this tank here, and then all these little vents, and then don't forget that we have the 2 weapons here. So we're going to do probably this brace, and then some of the tubing, some of the barrel. So we'll get most of that finished as well, and then we'll meet back here in a few minutes when that's done. So this is our bloat drone now that we finished with the metallics, and our Leadbelcher is done. So we've done all 3 fans. We've cleaned up the face a little bit, and then we've did the proboscis and the other sort of gears and stuff embedded in the flesh. Then we've done the braces on the back and on the bottom, and the fuel tank of some sort that's up here. So with that, we've finished with our metallics. Now in this case, we're going to use Balthasar gold and start doing the trim. So we're going to do this piece up here, as well as all the trim around each of the fans, and then these fans over here as well, and then the braces where the spurters go, and then on the plague spurters as well, we're going to do the front and then the trim and the tanks on these as well. So we'll do all that with our Balthasar gold, and it's pretty straightforward, same as the Leadbelcher. We're just going to put a watered down coat right on it like so. And it's a base color, so it should get some good coverage, but worst case scenario, like all the others, if we need a second coat, we'll just put on a second coat. So this is our bloat drone now, and for our next little bit, what we're going to do is take some Zandri dust, and we're going to go over the bug logo, as well as all of these horns, and then we're going to go over all of the spikes along the propellers here, the little teeth that stick out. So we're going to do all of those with Zandri dust, and then we'll meet back here again in a few minutes. This is our blight hauler now that we finished with the Zandri dust, and as you can see, we did the fly, bloat fly design, as well as all the horns, and then we did all of the horns on the propellers. And then we also did the fly design on the plaguespitters. So with that done, we're going to move on to a shade. Now our shade we're going to use is Agrax Earthshade, and we're going to use it in two types. So the first thing we're going to use is a direct out of the pot, which is going to be used on all the brass and most of the metallics to create a rusty type dirty look. And then we're going to use one watered down 50/50, which is going to be used on all of the green armor and the Zandri dust stuff. We won't touch any of the fleshy skin. We'll leave that alone as it is. But that's about all we're going to do for our shading. So taking it straight out of the pot, we're just going to do all of the engines, the propellers, all the bronze trim. We want to make this as grimy and as dirty as possible. All this trim coming through here as well. Because all this metal should appear rusty. So the direct shade is finished, and now we're just going to do the watered down shade over the armor. Just spreading that out a little bit more like so. As we wait for our shade to dry on our bloat drone, what we're going to do now is take a look at the pustules that are on the back here, these little dots, all throughout the back of the fleshy bits. And what we're going to do is just put a dab of paint on those, and we're going to use Ungor flesh, which is a nice pussy color. So we're just going to put a little dab on each one like so, just to light them up, just like that. So the next thing we're going to do on our bloat drone is these cables dangling from the bottom here. We've left them for the end, but we have to do them now because we want to put on the plaguespitters, and then we won't have access. So we're going to do all of these cabling here, these ones, those ones there, all those, and we're going to do them with a combination of Eshen Gray, and then we're going to do a highlight of Dawnstone over everything there. So we'll do that now, and we'll show you what it looks like. This is our bloat drone now that we've done with the cabling, and the last thing we're going to do before we put the weapons on are these vents right here at the bottom. They should have an engine glow to them. And in this case, what we're going to do is put just a tiny bit of Yriel yellow just in each one. So just like that, just to give it a little tiny bit of a glow. The next thing we're going to do is take a little bit of Khorne Red, and we're going to do two things with it. The first we're going to do is just directly paint the islands. And with a little bit of watered down stuff of the Khorne Red, we're going to put a little tiny bit over each of the Yriel yellow areas. So we get an outer glow, basically making a wash out of the deal. Just like so. So this is our bloat drone now that we've got the plaguespitters attached. And all we have to do now There's a couple more things. First thing we're going to do is take some Moot green, which is a very bright, vibrant, radioactive kind of green color. And we're just going to lightly go over all these strands here, these drips that are running between all the horns. Like so, just to bring out the sliminess that's there. So we'll do those. There's some on the other side. We'll do the drip that's hanging down here. As well. So we'll do those and we'll be back here in a few more minutes. So our bloat drone is now pretty much finished. What we're going to do is base it and then clear coat it with a matte spray. And then we're going to do two more things. We're going to take a little bit of Nurgle's rot and we're going to paint that all over these Moot green slime strands. And that'll make them both glossy and two-toned because this does have a different shade of green in it. Then we're going to take a little bit of Ardcoat and we're going to put that right over the islands just to make it glow. And then we'll pretty much be finished. So we'll meet back here in a few minutes when it's all done. So this here is our bloat drone now that we're finished. And as you can see, it turned out pretty good. The Nurgle's rod on the top added to the slime color. And the Ardcoat made the lens pretty reflective. If you like the way this looks and you're pretty happy with the way yours turned out, if yours turned out similar to this, please feel free to leave a comment. Let us know how yours did. If you have any criticisms or anything like that, throw them in the comments down below. If you like this video, please feel free to leave a like on the channel or even subscribe to it. That's a huge help. Otherwise than that, we will see you when we do our next video.